I was mentioning before, you've heard me use the term muting or string muting, and this is so important when you're playing guitar. I don't introduce that technique right off the bat because you have enough to get down in learning the chords and learning to strum. Remember our 3 goals, and now we're changing chords, so we're into the 3rd goal already, and you'll be playing songs that quickly, right? Those are our 3 goals. That's the reason why I didn't introduce the string muting quicker, because I wanted you to get the chords down, I wanted you to get the strumming, and now that you have the chords down and they're starting to sound good and we're changing them, you're probably saying to yourself, self, how can I play an A minor without this E string ringing? I always hear this ringing and it muddies up the chord. Okay, that's right. So that's why we have to do what's called string muting, to mute out certain notes that we don't want to hear. Namely, we're first going to work on muting out the low E string. Okay, so here's what you have to remember. Just remember this simple principle. Okay, you're going to mute the low E string out on all A, B, C, and D type chords. I know we didn't learn any B chords yet. We will. When we do, the first one is probably going to be a B7, and you're going to mute the low E. I'm planting seeds. So, and it's easy to remember. Just remember any A, B, C, or D type chord. A minor, B, B7, C add 9, D minor, D sus2, D sus4, which we're going to be getting to very soon also. Any of those, you're going to be muting out the low E string, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. With guitar, and this is whether you're a beginner, intermediate, expert, lead player, rhythm player, anything, you have to mute out all the notes that you are not playing. Now, when you're playing chords, we're only talking about 1 or 2 notes usually. It's usually the low E, sometimes the A string. But for guys like me who play a lot of lead guitar and other players, and you too soon are going to be playing some lead guitar and whatnot, then you're going to have to do more muting to mute out the other strings, because you might get string noises and unwanted pops and clicks, especially if you're going to play with distortion or gain or really rocked out kind of sounds. You have to do a little more muting, which we'll get into later. But for now, we're going to work on muting out the low E string because it's going to muddy up some chords, and we don't want that. Okay? We want our chords to be pure. Let me just give you an example of the sound, and then I'm going to bring the camera, or I'll come close to the camera to show you this technique type. And it's not a big deal, but it's going to save you. It's going to make a chord sound even better. When we play a C major chord, right? You know that chord. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Nice, happy, bright. Remember our chord colors. Remember our ear training, because we're training your ear as we're going along. Major chords are very happy and bright sounding. When you play that C major, you want to hear it from the low root note, which is C. You want to hear it from that C note on the low E string. I'm sorry, you want to hear it from that C note on the A string, 3rd fret. That's what gives you that nice crisp sound. Now, if I include the low E string, remember, the C has an X on the low E string. That means you don't play it. Now, if I play that with the low E, the C chord with the low E, it's going to muddy it up. Listen. See that? That low E string muddies the chord because the low E is lower than the C. Even though E is in this chord, a C major chord is made up of a C note, an E note, and a G note. Those 3 notes make up a C major chord, C major triad. Okay? Now, but you don't want the low E lower than the C. And that's what's happening if I hit the low E. See, it really muddies it. You want it without the low E. Okay, so how do you do this? How is this miracle performed? Here's our C chord. Alright, there's a nice look at that. Now, notice, we do not want to play this low E. See my thumb? Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to let my thumb creep up and just spill over the neck, just touch the low E string. That's all you need to do, because when it touches it, look what happens. See that? Now the low E string is deadened. It's deadened, and you're not going to hear that over the rest of the chord. See, it's dead. Now, when I say just touch, I don't mean press down hard, because if you press down too hard with your thumb, you're going to fret that note, and that would be bad, because then you're going to add this F sharp note to the chord. It's going to make it really sound out of tune. So all you're doing is you're bringing your thumb over the neck a hair just enough to touch the low E to deaden it. And look how beautiful that chord sounds. Now, if you can't seem to get your thumb over, I really want you to try. Sometimes, some of my students, what they like to do is use their third finger to deaden it. How they do that is, they're pressing down here on the third fret on the C note, but they let this string kind of just spill over. Let this finger spill over to touch the low E right here. So you're fretting this note, but they let it kind of spill over to grab it. So when you hit the low E, see, it's deadened. I'm not doing it with my thumb. I'm doing it with this finger. So there's two different ways you could do it. I prefer to do it with my thumb. So I'm hitting all 6 strings. I'm hitting all 6, but you only hear 5. You hear 5 because the 1 is deadened, and that's what you want on A, B, C, and D type chords. Now, you're going to notice something else. You're going to notice that in order to get your thumb up a little bit, it's going to pull your wrist up a hair. And I know we've been working on technique, and I've always been saying to you, keep your wrist down, keep your wrist down, keep your wrist down. That is true. You always want to try to keep your wrist down, but here's the kicker. Sometimes on guitar, you have to bend the rules a little bit to get the job done. Okay? And this is one of those instances where we have to bend the rules a little bit to get the job done. So yes, our wrist is going to come up a little bit. I'd rather have your wrist come up a hair and mute that note than not, and play it, mute that string rather, than play that string, because it's going to make the chord sound really ugly. Okay? So, when I say your wrist is going to come up a little bit, I mean a little bit. I don't mean it should be like this. And I don't mean I want you grabbing this like a baseball bat. All I'm saying is, instead of your wrist maybe being far down like this, it's going to come up a little bit like that. Okay? That's acceptable with these open chords. But later on, the wrist will be down. Like when we're doing our bar chords later and whatnot, notice my wrist in this position. See, I'm not like this. Wrist is down. When I'm playing fingering notes, look at my wrist. See, my wrist is down, not here. Okay? But for these open position chords, where we're playing up down here, in this first position that we're working on, you know, our D, our G, our E minor, our C, our A minor, D minor. Okay? Okay, we'll bring the thumb up a little bit. Bring the wrist up a little bit. So we got to do this. It's like the lesser of two evils, okay? So we're bending the rules a tad. So, that's a good shot of that. Do you see how my thumb is muting the C, muting that low E? And now I'm hitting all 6. Same thing with A minor, right? Here's our A minor chord, right, that we've been studying. Pinky attached. There's A minor. Look at my thumb. There's a good shot of it. I'm hitting the low E string, but see how it's deadened? You don't want this. If I push down too hard, see, I'm fretting that note. You don't want that. Just watch this. I'm going to bring the thumb. I'm not touching it. I'm going to bring the thumb closer until you can hear the string deadened. I'm hitting the low E. See that? That's what you want. Just till it deadens it. Now, when I play this chord, I'm going to hit all 6 strings. See? You only hear 5 because I have the 1 deadened. So do that with A minor. You do that with A major. A major, remember, all A, again, look at my thumb. See again, just muted, now hit all 6. And you hear that beautiful A major chord on all A type chords. So A, A minor, see it muting. B, which we'll get to, C, C major, okay, you're going to do it. Again, look at the thumb. C add 9 also. Again, some of my students, especially on C add 9, they rather have this finger, the second finger, you know, spill over a little bit and just touch the string, then hit it with their thumb. Either way, I like doing it with my thumb, but you can also let it spill over on the C type chords. C add 9, you're going to do it. See, I'm hitting all 6 strings, but you hear 5. D. Now on D, theoretically, you want to mute 2 strings. You want to mute because you're only playing the 4 strings on D. 1, 2, 3, 4. On D, you're only playing these 4 strings. So, I have big hands, so I can get my thumb to mute both the low E and the A. So I'm hitting all 6. but you're only hearing 4. That's hard for some folks. You might only get, your hand might not be that big. If so, just mute the low E, because having that open A ringing out, theoretically, you really don't want it to be there, but it doesn't muddy the chord up that bad. See, if you could just mute out the low E on the D and you're hitting the A, it's not that bad. But if you put that E in there, the low E, see, it really muddies it up really bad. So, again, if you can, mute them both. If you can't, just mute the one. And this technique is going to take a little bit to get down. Same thing on D minor. D minor, again, I could get them both, right? See, I only hear 4 even though I'm hitting 6, because the other 2 are muted. And I want you to start working on it. Now, that's not going to come overnight. You're just going to have to practice it until you get comfortable, because if you notice, again, see, my wrist is down and this is the way we've been working it, but I'm asking you to just come up a little bit. But you have to break that rule. Otherwise your chords are going to be too muddy. There's no way around that one. And there's no way when you're strumming fast, like on a C chord, how are you going to miss this low E string and just play the 5? You probably were wondering that when you were playing, like, how am I ever going to do that? What's wrong with this next level guitar? I don't get it. And this is why, right? And now I'm showing you. And there's a reason why I waited a little bit, because I wanted you to get those chords down. If I showed you this at first, you'd be like, oh my God, I got to play this chord. I got to bend my wrist. I got the hand. I got to mute the thumb. I got to get my thumb over there too. Right? So this is the easiest way, okay? So, when you're strumming, I don't want to have to worry about not hitting a certain string. How are you going to do that? You want to put your passion into the strum and your emotion into the strum, right? So you don't worry about what string you're not hitting, because you're muting it, and you're hitting them all. See, on this one, I'm strumming away at a C. I'm hitting all 6. You only hear 5. A minor. You only hear 5. So practice that. Remember your changes you were working before, C to A minor? Practice it now with the string muting, and it's going to sound a lot cleaner. C, A minor. Here's my mechanics of the change. Now with the strum. I'm hitting 6, you're hearing 5. D, you're hearing 4. I'm hitting 6. Look, I'm hitting all 6 strings. But you're only hitting 4. Now if you go to E minor you don't mute. Remember, here's all you have to remember on this. We keep it simple. Just mute the low E string on all A, B, C, and D type chords for now. Okay? And that's A minor, B, B7, C, C add 9, D, D minor, D sus2, D sus4, which we're going to be getting into very soon, B7, okay? So I want you to practice that, incorporate that into your routine, okay? And we will see you in the next module. Rock on, good people, and have fun with this instrument. It's a beautiful thing. It's sexy, I'm telling you. All right, take care.